science fiction, it's a fluctuating genre. Space travel and time travel, interplanetary wars, space operas, and political fiction. All of these are classified as science fiction. So let's go back in time or back to the future to understand how science fiction works. In the 20s, Fritz was responsible for the genre's first masterpiece, Metropolis, directed in 1927, and Woman in the Moon, directed in 1929. But arguably we can go back also to Méliès' period, where in his studio he was directing at the very beginning and inception of filmmaking and cinematography some of the most interesting science fiction short films. So that could be the beginning of science fiction, but Fritz definitely with his Metropolis created one of the first feature films that were completely redefining the genre. But it actually wasn't until after the war that science fiction really established its preeminence. Yes, the Second World War, where atomic terror hung over the world and its first victim, Japan, exercised its fears through monsters such as Godzilla and Rodan, directed by Ishihiro Honda in 1954 and 1956. Out of shame and maybe out of fear, the United States, which had dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, also created numerous movie mutants. Like for example, Them, directed by Gordon Douglas in 1954. At the time, the entire United States was trembling with fear. The Cold War was raging, and you see, communists were therefore disguised as extraterrestrials or Martians, because communists represented Russians. And it would be more easy to describe them as aliens to not encounter additional problems that they already had in that political landscape. A few rare humanists actually depicted the stranger as an ally, like for example The Day the Earth Stood Still, directed by Robert Wise in 1951. But most frequently the so-called red alien, you get what I did there, red because communists were also called that as red. So the red alien. Anyhow, these little green men were malignant creatures entrusted with deviously undermining the foundations of democracy. As in The Thing, directed by Christian Nyby in 1951, and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, directed by Don Siegel in 1956. Man becomes dizzy when faced with a fate he cannot master and is terrified by technology he no longer controls. Recall the shock caused by the end of Planet of the Apes, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner in 1967, where Charlton Heston, the main actor in the movie, discovered with horror that the land ruled by gorillas and apes, long considered subhuman species, was none other than New York, which had been devastated by a nuclear catastrophe. The success of Franklin J. Schaffner's film led to a whole series of innovative films, like for example George Lucas's THX 1138, directed in 1971, and Richard Fleischer's Soylent Green, directed in 1973. Also, you can check out Robert Altman's nice stab at the genre in Quintet, 1979, and more recently Andrew Niccol's superb Gattaca, directed in 1987. The simultaneous development of special effects allowed directors like Ridley Scott to visually rejuvenate classic scenarios. His finest film is Blade Runner, inspired by an excellent Philip K. Dick novel called Do Android Dreams of Electric Sheep? It tells the story of a tired ex-cop, played by Harrison Ford, in Los Angeles in the year 2019, and his discovery of the battle between humans and androids, who have memories and feelings. But let's go back to 1977, where the commercial triumph for George Lucas's Star Wars, the sci-fi of yesteryear, turned into galactic sagas, half space western, half fairy tale for cyberspace children. The eternal struggle between good and evil remains in the rivalry between wise Obi-Wan Kenobi and mysterious Darth Vader. Yet it was the robots C-3PO and R2-D2 who soon occupied the imaginations of global teenagers who rallied to the slogan, "May the Force be with you." Less spectacular but cinematically more disturbing was the secret struggle between Anglo-Saxon and Soviet studios, between an American visionary and a Russian spiritualist. In 1968, Stanley Kubrick shot 2001: A Space Odyssey, in which he pondered time, space, and the mystery of infinity. See, for him, man only existed as a material creature, and the spirituality he tries to attain is nothing but an impossible last resort. 3 years later, in Solaris, Andrei Tarkovsky replied to that. On the contrary, he thought that spirituality seemed to be the thing that provided indispensable salvation to human beings. And through its regrets and its remorse, a being can hope to create links with the incomprehensible immensity, links that are veritable sources of life. Their films, which are as different as they are splendid, are the crown jewels of modern science fiction. Outer space, inner space, new worlds, tech frontiers, artificial intelligence. The best science fiction movies take us to places beyond our own imagination and dreaming up impossible futures that inevitably go on to shape our own technological advances. You see, great sci-fi delivers mind-bending visuals packed with mind-blowing ideas, and potentially it's also a safe space to give a social commentary and probing everything from the human experience to the future of humanity. But above all else, science fiction is the world of possibilities and change, and it offers us a tool to see how we can change our world and ultimately ourselves, inspiring us to face and understand how we can improve our very own existence. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow along our cinematic journey.